This is Bridge with Steven. In this session, we're going to cover part 2 of Declare Play. Last time we discussed the ABCs of assessing, browsing, and considering our line of play before we even play the first card from dummy. And today we're going to look at some specific aspects of hand play. First, let's start with Declare Play and No Trump. That's a little bit different than suit contracts in one important way. We still have high card promotion on our list of ways of developing tricks, and small card promotion. Remember, high card promotion was knocking out higher cards, like perhaps we have the suit headed by the King, Queen, Jack, and we're not ready to take any tricks in that suit until we get rid of the ace, perhaps. So we lead from that suit and we promote our high cards and make them the highest instead of just high. With small card promotion, that's also long suit promotion, we're going to continue leading a suit until the opponents run out, and then our small cards in that suit will be able to take tricks. We also have finessing, which we went into in some detail in part 1. But what we don't have is roughing. We can't rough and dummy, so that's gone. And if you remember from part 1, there was also another item on this list that included various end plays, like squeezes and strip and end play. And I said we wouldn't mention much about that at that time. We still aren't going to talk about squeezes. Squeezes are still available to us in no trump contracts. But the strip and end play isn't, because that requires that we be able to rough and dummy. And we're going to look at an example of that before we're done. Those are the ways that we develop tricks in no trump. One other thing about no trump, you may or may not have heard of this so-called rule of 7. It's some advice on how long to hold up before winning your only stopper. For example, suppose you have ace, 8, 7 in hand in a suit and 5, 4 in the dummy, and the opponents lead the suit. When should you take your ace? The first trick, the second trick, or the third trick? Well, the rule of 7 says subtract the number of cards you hold in that suit, which in this case is 5, 3 plus 2, from 7, and the remainder is 2, and that's the number of times we should hold up. So we wouldn't win the first trick, we would not win the second trick, we would by force have to win the third trick, but that's when we would choose to win a trick even if we had another card in the suit. The reason being that if the opponent's cards break 4-4, we're likely to lose 3 tricks in that suit whenever we take our ace. But if the opponent's suits break 5-3 or worse, we've now exhausted the cards in that suit in one of the opponent's hands, and if that opponent gets in, we'll be unable to return it. So we'll lose 3 in a 4-4 break, but we might not lose 4 or 5 in worse breaks. Now we're going to get to suit contracts. And we did talk a little bit when we were talking about considering the line of play, about listening to the opponent's bidding, looking at their opening lead, looking at our entries, designing a line of play. In suit contracts, we usually begin by pulling trump. But there are a couple of times when we either delay pulling trump or don't pull trump at all. And I'll show you 3 such situations. First of all, we may need to rough a loser and dummy first before we pull trump. Here we are in 4 spades, a rather ambitious contract. And the opening lead was the king of diamonds. Okay, we can see that we have 5 spade tricks and 2 hard tricks is 7. And the ace of diamonds is 8, but we're contracted for 10 tricks, so we need to develop 2 more. Now, it's possible that the diamonds will allow us to do this, but there's a better line of play. Let's rough a couple of clubs. So we win the opening lead with the ace of diamonds, and the first thing we do is lead a club. The opponents know right away what our intention is. We intend to rough clubs. They'll win that trick, and if they're savvy, they'll return a trump, which will win in hand. Then we'll rough a club, come back to hand and a heart, rough another club, and then commence to pull trump. And in that way, we produce 2 more tricks, and we'll make this contract. Okay, now here's another situation where we don't pull trump right away. We need a quick discard. We're in a contract with 3 hearts, so we need 9 tricks. The opening lead is the 2 of diamonds. And we can see that we have a spade loser, we have a heart loser, and possibly 3 club losers. Well, if we lose 5 tricks, we're down 1. So, what are we going to do to prevent that? Well, what we're going to do is win the opening lead in dummy with the ace of diamonds, and before we pull trump, the next thing we're going to do is lead the king of diamonds and discard our club, which now limits our club losers to just 2. And now we can make this contract. Here's another example where we need a quick discard. We're in the contract of 4 hearts, and the opening lead is a 7 of spades, which we must win in hand. Now, if we begin to pull trump right now, we're going to lose to the ace, and the opponents may cash the ace of clubs. That's going to be a problem for us, because if that happens, we're going to lose a heart, looks like 3 diamonds, and a club. So that's down 2. You may think, well, let's rough a diamond, but that's not really feasible, because we'd have to play 3 rounds of diamonds before we let the 4th one. We'd have to not pull trump for all that time to reserve our 1 trump in dummy, and the opponents just aren't going to let us do that. So that's not really going to work. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to win the ace of spades, get over to a dummy with the ace of diamonds, play the king, queen of spades, and if the spades break no worse than 5-3, we're missing 8 of them, we'll get 2 pitches. We'll discard the 8 of clubs and 1 of the diamonds. And in that way, we won't lose any clubs, and we can't lose more than 2 diamonds, making the contract. Now, here's another time where we not only delay playing trump, but we just don't pull trump at all, when we have a cross ruff. This time we're in 2 spades, and the opening lead is the king of hearts. Well, we look at the hand, and we see that we have to knock out the ace of spades. We have a loser there to develop our other 3 high cards in that suit, if we're going to lead trump, but that's not what we're going to do. We have 3 spade winners. We have a heart winner is 4. We have a diamond winner is 5, and a club winner is 6. We need 2 more tricks because we've contracted for 8. So how are we going to get that? Well, we're going to win the ace of hearts in hand, lead the ace of diamonds and rough a diamond, lead the ace of clubs and rough a club, rough another diamond, rough another club, rough another diamond. Do that for as long as it's possible. Eventually, one of the opponents will over rough with the ace of spades. And if that opponent is savvy, we'll return another spade. The purpose of cross-ruffing is to use our trump 1 at a time instead of 2 at a time, as is normally the case. If we lead this suit, we have to play 1 from each hand. But if we're just cross-ruffing, we're only playing 1 from each hand. Okay, now we're going to look at a kind of a interesting and maybe a little bit complicated situation, the so-called strip and end play. Look at this hand. South is the dealer and opens a diamond. West overcalls a heart. Partner raises to 2 diamonds. East makes a preemptive 3 heart call. South continues to compete with 4 diamonds, 4 hearts, 5 diamonds, double. So North-South is in 5 diamonds, doubled. And the opening lead is the ace of hearts, which holds, but West can now see any further hearts will be rough, and this is followed by a spade. So what do we do? Okay, let's assess. We need 11 tricks. We have 1 spade, we have 6 diamonds is 7, and probably 4 clubs is 11. It looks like we're going to make this contract. The only way it can fail is if the clubs break 4-1 and West has 4 to the jack, and that's exactly what's going to happen this time. We don't know that yet, but we have a way to protect ourselves against that possibility. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pop up with the ace of spades. We're going to draw trump ending a hand. What we're going to now do is clear the hand of hearts. First by roughing 1 heart, getting back to hand and clubs, noting rough a heart and dummy, get back to hand and clubs, noting that both follow. Good news so far. And then lead and rough our last heart. Come back to hand with club, another club. This time, however, right hand opponent doesn't follow, and we see the worst possible news. West started with Jack 4th. So how are we going to avoid losing a club? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to end play the opponents. We've now come down to this position before we we're going to lead the queen of spades, and this is the position we're in at the time that we lead the queen of spades. Okay? Remember, Declare has gotten rid of all his hearts by losing the opening lead and then ruffing 2 cards. The opponents are out of trump, and East is out of clubs. It has been since the second round of clubs. West still has his Jack-9. When we lead the queen of spades, we're going to put East in. What's East going to do now? At that point, we're void in spades and hearts in both of these hands. East doesn't have a club to lead. East can only lead a spade or a heart because it's out of clubs and out of trump. And either of those gives us a ruff and a sluff. And at that point, we discard the losing club and ruff. It doesn't matter whether we discard a club from here and ruff the 10 later, or whether we discard the 10 and continue to make our 11 tricks. And notice this works even if West is the one with the king of spades, because if West wins the trick where we lead the queen, West has the same problem. West either has to lead a heart now for a ruff and a sluff, or lead away from his Jack-9. He's unplayed. We've got the queen 10 down here waiting for him. In either case, we make the contract. And that's a strip and end play. Not terribly difficult. In my opinion, not as hard as squeezes. Anyway, that's it for today. This is Bridge with Stephen.